Hey everyone, I'm Alison with Better Half Reviews, and today I'm talking about Archwynd. This is a re-implementation of a game that I covered a couple years ago called RPG Battles, and also there's a new expansion, the Archwynd Vale. So let's talk about it. So in Archwynd, you're going to be picking a character to play as. If you've played any type of Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder, some things will sound a little bit similar or not be too hard to learn. So for example, I could pick a rogue, and then on the card it'll have your stats. So I've got my AC at 17, and for my battling I have +5, and my hearts are 5, and I've got an ability, and I've got a spot to have a weapon or some type of shield. And of course this wouldn't be anything RPG-ish without a d20, so everybody gets one of these. For everyone who is playing, you get a teleport card in your hand. This is something that gives you the option of maybe being like, ooh, this battle's way too hard, I need to skedaddle. And then for each player that's playing, you have these 3 cards that are shuffled into the deck, 1 per player. So you got treasure, a magic item of a potion to heal, and raise the dead. So if you have this one and you happen to lose all your hit points, maybe you can come back to life. These are shuffled back in, and everybody will start with 4 cards plus your teleport card. So on your turn, you're going to draw a card, and then you can play as many cards as you want on your turn, whether to, upgrade your character, or maybe try to do some pickpocketing or steal from other people if you want to. So for example, I have a weapon, so I would attach that to my character because it'll help with my battle. So I'd attach it up here, and it has a +2, so now I've got a +7 for my battling. And if I happen to be lucky, which I did get lucky, I have an armor, so that will add +1 to my defense. At that point, I don't think I'm going to play any more cards. There's some cards I have that could help me during my battle if I end up having one, or maybe some different items that could help me on my next turn. Now, you have different modes that you can play on, which can make the game kind of lengthen or shorten. So we have the encounter. So I can have it at, let's see, the standard is 12, so what you would do is you roll your d20, and if you don't reach that number, you're going to draw an encounter card. So that if you want more encounters to happen more often, there's difficult at 15, and then God mode at 18. So if I rolled it and I'm like, oh, I didn't reach the number I was supposed to get to, I'm going to have an encounter. You draw one and deal with it. It could be a trap, it could be a benison, something helpful to you, or it could be a monster. So in this case, I drew a benison. You read what the card does, and sometimes you'll get to equip it, or it'll give you something good. So this one says heal 1 HP for each card in your hand, or equipped items that you sacrifice to the discard pile. So if I give up some of my cards, maybe I could heal some health if I had lost some. And then you discard it. But let's say we get a monster. So we've got the fungus weird, which he's kind of creepy. So he's got his stats down below, and some of them have some special abilities. So he only gets 2 hearts, and then you can just have someone else who you're playing with roll the d20 for them. And as is the way of things when you're playing D&D, you're going to roll for initiative for both of you, and then you're going to take turns battling it out. And hopefully you defeat the monster. So for example, this guy says, when the monster is hit by an opponent, all players without a ranged weapon equipped roll a d20. If the result is 5 or less, player is covered in spores and loses 1 hit point. So this can actually affect other players, and so I don't have a ranged weapon. It could also affect me. But yeah, that's how it works. If you need a refresher, or if this is your first time learning something in the RPG realm of things, if I'm trying to attack this guy, his defense starts at 14. So I need to reach that or hit above in order to attack him. So, for example, I have my +5 and my +2 for battling, and I roll the die. So I rolled a 10. So I take my base roll, 10, and added my 7 to it, so I've got 17. And his is 14. So I totally surpassed that. He would take a hit, and so he would take away 1 of his life points. And then it would be his turn to roll and to attack me. So let's say he rolled a 17, which my defense starts at 17 plus 1 for my armor, so I actually have 18. So he didn't beat it, he would miss the attack against me, and then I would get to attack him. But remember, when we do attack him, there's actually the thing about, oh, everybody has to roll a d20 if you don't have a ranged weapon, so actually I should have done that after I attacked him. That would have been fine. But anyway, so that's how a monster attack goes, and if you defeat a monster, you discard it, and you get to have this little treasure token. And treasure tokens are something that you can use to trade in to help your own character. So like, for example, if you have 3 of these collected, you can turn in 3 to gain back 1 health point. When you are trying to heal, you can't go past whatever your maximum number of hearts is. So if you're all the way full, you can't get any more. So play continues on and on, just like that, where you draw a card, play cards, roll for an encounter, deal with your encounter if you have one, and on until you are the last player standing. And if you are the winner. Alright, so that's the gist of how you play Archwynd, the re-implementation of RPG battles. But along with this relaunch, they are also doing Archwynd Vale, an expansion to Archwynd. So what does the expansion give you? So in Archwynd, it gave you a couple characters to play as, and you can only play with up to 3 players. But with Archwynd Vale, it adds some more characters. Just a few more. So you've got, what, the Barbarian, the Alchemist, he's adorable, I love him, the Paladin, the Monk, and the Druid. So lots more characters for you to choose as, or choose to play as, and you can also play this game with up to 6 players now, because it gives you some more dice, more health tokens, and then more cards. But along with that, you also get new benisons, new traps, new monsters, and one thing I appreciate that they did is they have this little red circle on all the expansion cards to be like, hey, this is an expansion card. So if you want to like shuffle it out, take things out, or add it quickly, just look for the red dot and you've got your expansion cards. The other thing that I really like that they did is they added a little bit more creativity to it. So if you've ever played D&D, when you are making a character, usually you have like a base amount of points that you can spend to make your character your own. So they did that for Archwynd Vale. So you have all the different character types, but now you've got this little section. So with the Alchemist, it says you have a base of 16 points that you can spend. And I can, deliberate and figure out where I want to spend those points to change up my stats. So let's see, for the AC, I start with 10, and then I can add in whatever number I want. So maybe I'd say like 5. And so, yeah, I can write on the card. I get to write on the card. So that gives me 15. And it does have a thing of like, hey, you can't go higher than the max. So I did 15, it says your max is 18. So don't go higher than that. So now I've spent 5, now I have 11 different points to use to make the rest of my stats. So you get to decide your AC, attack, hit points, and cards that you can have in your hand. And everybody will have their ability. Some abilities are like once per round, some are abilities once per game. But yeah, and then you can just erase it when you die. Or, when you move on to the next game. Okay, so let's talk about pros and cons of this game. So originally when this game came out as RPG battles, one of my big cons was the title of the game. It was just kind of forgettable, didn't really stick out. I mean, it did let you know you're doing RPG battles, which is what this is. But I like this rebranding. So like the name sounds cool, Archwynd. And also I love that they've focused a bit more on art. So from the previous game, it was like you got the character art and then it was a lot of beige backgrounds and just kind of there. And you got the point across, you're playing as your character and stuff, and there was some art, but this one definitely makes it more presentable and better table presence. So I just like the emphasis that they have to just kind of make it feel more put together. So like the art on it and the design is better in my opinion, because in RPG battles you had your character and it just had just the character in beige and then an extra card to put for their ability. Rather than having separate cards, now it's like here's your character, here's your ability, and all your stats. So I like that they kind of combined it, and they're using some of these bigger cards because it's make it easier to like attach things without your card feeling lost. I do like some of the change up that they did from the original gameplay, because in RPG battles, the monsters were actually just small cards, and they were put into this deck, which was fun. I enjoyed it, where it's like you never know if you're going to get a good card to help you, or if you're going to draw a monster. But I like that now the monsters and the traps and medicines are their own deck, where you're going to get cards that can try to help you some way or the other for your character just in here. I like that they have this. I feel like this game is also very easy to make some own like home rules for yourself. So when I was playing it with my son, I didn't want the game to like get stuck too long for attention spans. So we would just do an encounter every time and see what happens. So I like this idea of it, but I do also personally like the home rules of just having an encounter every time. Fun story, I was playing this game with my husband and I kept rolling so many ones. It was ridiculous. And so I like changed out my die hoping that it would be better. It was a cursed die. Blowing on it, nothing really worked. May you have better rolls than I do. Those were better rolls than my previous game. Some more pros, similar to when I played this originally as RPG battles. I like that this takes things that are familiar from D&D and Pathfinder, with like your stats and characters and just like battling monsters and D20 and how to add your different defense or AC. I like that it can like take it down to just the easy stuff. So it's like if you're interested in going and trying RPGs, but it just seems too intimidating because it's like there's this whole story and traveling and all these different abilities to figure out. If you want like a baby step, I would recommend Archwynd, because you can get familiar with kind of how stats work and having some abilities and encounters and how to like battle monsters and how that works and with the rolling for initiative without going crazy and having like a big long campaign and trying to find a DM. So if you want to just like practice battling it out with RPG style of things, Archwynd would be a good go-to. As for playability, I would say that you can play this with kids, but reading is very needed, or at least very helpful. So there's a decent amount of writing on some of the cards. My son is 6 and he was playing this game, but I had to kind of help out with what the different abilities were. But I mean, he could figure out the numbers and stuff, and it just takes some time to do the math. There are some kind of creepy monsters, so just maybe keep that in mind when playing with kids. I mean, I guess you could cover them up, but that's kind of boring. Anyway. I didn't mention this earlier, but you can also play this as a solo game, maybe just some different rules with encounters, so it's like once you beat 4 monsters, you can win the game, something like that. But I definitely recommend this as a multiplayer adventure because it's more fun when you're able to pickpocket from your partners, or, you know, have craziness happen with like, oh, we're fighting this monster, but you're going to get affected too. Or you draw those traps and it's like, oh no, people who are sitting to the left and right of you also have to roll. So I like the chaos that happens when you have more players playing the game. Alright, so those are my thoughts on Archwynd and Archwynd Vale. Again, I'd recommend it if you just like to duke it out and battle it out. Try something a little bit RPG styled without having to worry about a whole campaign and DMs. The art is fun, and it's just fun just to roll a d20 and see what happens. So if you want more information about Archwynd, I'll put some links in the description down below where you can hopefully back this game on crowdfunding. I'm Allison with Better Half Reviews. Happy gaming! I rolled a 15. Fungus. Fungus among us.